Toastmasters rehearsal, take one, sock monkey version. I'm not a sports fan. I'm the sort who annoyingly and ironically refers to sports as sports ball. When I moved from Illinois to Wisconsin, I was subjected to a litmus test of one question. Are you still going to be a Bears fan, or are you going to be a Packers fan? My early response was unfiltered and ill-advised. I don't watch football. The disdain, the mistrust, the horror. I had to dig deep and revise my response by saying that my dad's favorite team when I was growing up was the Green Bay Packers, so of course that was my favorite team too. Whew! Dodged a bullet. But I blew my cover one day when I went into my local coffee shop, where my barista told me that it was Clay Matthews Day, and so there was a discount on drinks. "Oh, who's Clay Matthews?" I asked. My barista laughed. Then she realized I wasn't joking. She pointed to the door and told me to never come back again. Okay, not really, but my mochas never tasted quite the same again. But this isn't about the Packers. This is about the Chicago Cubs. You may have heard of them. Scrappy little baseball team who just won the World Series of Baseball for the first time in 108 years. If you are suffering from Cubs fatigue, I beg your forbearance for another few minutes. I can't say that I have followed the Cubs religiously for years. I can't rattle off stats or rosters. I'm not a baseball fan. I am a Cubs fan. It's a carryover from my childhood. I grew up in central Illinois, the dividing line between Cubs and Cardinals territory, but our neighborhood was solidly Cubs blue. My memory of the Cubs is auditory from the radio. I'm sure my dad watched games on TV, but folks lived outside in the summer when I grew up. There were huge gardens to tend to, and not everyone had air conditioning, so we lived outside in the summer. Our closest neighbor, Floyd Starkey, would put his stereo speakers in the window to broadcast whatever he was listening to, most often clicky 8-track tapes like Merle Haggard and the Statler Brothers, and Cubs games. Not that I listened to the specifics of the games. It was just that it became part of my summer soundtrack. Harry Caray's play-by-play, the seventh inning stretch, and commercials for old-style beer, fresh brewed in God's country, also known as La Crosse, Wisconsin. I associate the Cubs with running barefoot, riding my bike, the smell of hot dogs on the grill, the bounty of my dad's garden, and the pop and fizz of a freshly opened can of beer. I grew up, left home, and the Cubs dropped from my summer playlist. But nostalgia and those memories would prompt me to declare my allegiance whenever the opportunity presented itself. I was pleased to introduce an old friend to my new baby at Wrigley in 1991. A few years ago, I had a surge of homesickness after having to sell my parents' house. Listening to the Cubs was tonic. I started watching and listening again in earnest. I even paid attention to the games. Not living in a Cubs broadcast market and not having cable made it a challenge, but hey, there's an app for that. Flash forward to Game 1 of this year's World Series. It was my first night at the Wisconsin Library Association conference in Milwaukee at the Potawatomi Casino Hotel. I started watching the game in my room, but I needed dinner and was looking for a bit of camaraderie. For the first time in my life, I sought out a sports bar rather than avoided one, and found one in the hotel's complex. The game had already started and was not going well. I grabbed a seat at the end of the bar, a disaster unfolding before me on 3 screens. I placed my order, and within minutes I had transformed into that person who yells at the TV, complete with wild hand gestures and copious swearing. Once in a while, I would engage with someone who would wander up and ask the score, commiserating about what a shameful performance we were witnessing by the best team in baseball. To my left sat an older gentleman quietly nursing his beer. During a commercial in the third inning, as if he had not figured it out already, he turned to me and almost deadpan asked, "So, you like the Cubs?" It was so disarming that I could not help but laugh, and we began to talk. At first, I kept looking up at the screens, but after a while had forgotten about the game. We talked about lots of things. In his 70s now, he was fairly recently reunited with his high school sweetheart after both of them had married others and had 5 children each. He sips beer while she plays the slots. We shared stories about our children and our careers. We covered a lot of ground before he told me that the secret to his happiness, he doesn't let things get to him, he said, because when you do that, you create a bad memory, and you've got that memory forever. Only good memories, he says. It's such a simple thing, but it struck me as terrifically profound. I parted ways with my new friend, Arnie, the casino philosopher, and went back to my room to watch the rest of the game. The Cubs lost. Holy cow, did they lose. But what will I remember from that night? Making a friend, learning a new way to look at life. That's a good memory. I've always said that my love for Cubs is not about sports, but about patience, dealing with disappointment, about home. Winning the series transcended sports ball, not just for me, but for our country in sore need of some good memories. We sure got 'em.